Welcome to Body by Design. I'm your host, Blue Driver, a women's strength training and metabolism coach. I went from years suffering hormone imbalances, looking soft and bloated, to symptom-free and building muscle for a toned athletic physique. Since then, I've made it my mission to empower women to take control of their own health, hormones and body composition. So grab a cup of coffee and let's build your body by design. Hello and welcome back to the Body by Design podcast. I'm Lou Driver, your host. And today's podcast, I watched a reel over the weekend from another coach and it kind of sparked the idea in me. So I'll talk about the reel first. And this coach, I actually know her through a business coaching container we were in, and she's a solid coach. She trains hard. She's healthy. And put up this reel the other day around the society's shift in the perception around deficits and how she felt like she needed to explain herself for wanting to go into a deficit. So she's going on a summer holiday, wants to look good in a bikini, and has decided she's going to bring her body fat down. Now, let's understand here that she has a solid metabolic health foundation and she's got a solid muscular base. So dieting for her is she's got those foundations there, and provided that going into a diet is done in a responsible way. So when I'm talking about a responsible way is there needs to be strategy behind it. There needs to be specific markers that you're thinking about before getting into it. And you need to be really responsible with the foods that you are eating in a deficit because your calories are quite low. So it's not just about energy availability, which obviously is a big part of it. But when you get to lower calories, you've obviously got a lower volume of nutrients available. And this is something that becomes key. And I agree with her at the moment that there seems to be this perception that dieting is bad. And if you say you want to go into a deficit, it's like, oh, you don't need to, you look great anyway. And just the general narrative out there around dieting is bad and you need to be at maintenance. I have even had a lot of people challenge me on why I'm dieting. So I am currently in a mini cut. At the time of this recording, I'm about 6 weeks in. I'm in week 6, and I said I do 6 to 8 weeks. So at any given point now, I am looking for metabolic stress to leave or at the 8-week mark. So I've got some different markers that I'm looking for, and whichever comes first is what will be my indicator to leave, to get out of the deficit. But society is making, not society, but this Instagram narrative, and I get it, coaches are trying to reach out to those women who have been chronically dieting over the years, but going into a structured deficit as part of a plan is really very different to the chronic dieting culture that is in there, which is an entirely different story. And that chronic dieting culture has taken people into a very down-regulated metabolic state, which means their caloric base has become very low. So your maintenance calories are quite low if this is you. So if you're in the gym 5-6 days a week, you train hard, but nothing seems to be shifting and you're surviving on 1,800 or lower, I'm going to say to you that you're likely to be, unless you're a midget, you're likely to be down-regulated in your metabolic health. So the responsibility for you is not about dieting, and so maybe dieting isn't for you right now, but you have to look at your food intake as almost like a diet, because it becomes so much more important with the food that you are eating. So dieting isn't inherently bad. I mean, I've gone into a deficit, and I'll be honest, my entire reason is I sat between 2 sizes of clothes that I've got in my wardrobe. And it's driving me nuts that I can't fit into either one comfortably. One either hangs off me and doesn't look good, or the other one is like super tight and uncomfortable to be in. So I just wanted to trim down a bit so I can fit into my smaller size clothes, not because I want to be smaller, but that was just my preference. And I know I show a little more shape and muscle definition in that lower end, and I'm really happy there. Not just remembering also, I haven't been in a deficit in over 2.5 years. And I am now 1 year post back injury where I did gain some body fat and lost some muscle mass. And I've spent a lot of time regulating myself again and getting my muscle back, that now it's time just to bring that down. Not that that needs to be defended by anyone. Your definition of what looks good is yours. Okay, not what anyone else says, because you look in the mirror every day. You look at your body every day. You get naked in front of your partner. You put those clothes on and go out to dinner. You have to feel good. Now, in saying that, that doesn't mean I support people who have got body dysmorphia, who are relying on their body for confidence, like only relying on your body for confidence, obviously those sorts of things. But when we're in a healthy relationship with food and we nourish ourselves really well, it's okay to want to change the way you look. And it's okay to want to look fucking hot in midlife. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. We seem to have this culture now where everyone is poo-pooing dieting because of the excessive diet culture, that now when someone who is actually being responsible wants to go in a planned and structured deficit, people are making comment on it and telling you you don't need to. And quite frankly, it's not anyone else's business. But where this became more of a podcast episode for me is I was talking about this on a live, and I was talking about being responsible with your deficits. But this also translates to if you're down regulated and you're on quite low calories, you also need to be responsible about your food. So this episode is all around nourishment. And the reason why I want to go here is because all the women I speak to, they're in midlife, they're already in the gym, whether, you're doing circuits, whether you're doing weight training, but you have that commitment to be in the gym. You want to change your body shape. You want to look and feel confident in midlife. And you are absolutely entitled to do that. But there is a responsibility that goes with building a body. And depending on your starting point and where you're at is what you need to have a look at. And you either need to, when you go into a deficit, be responsible about the foods that you choose and that you eat, because you are going into lower volume. So you need to make sure you keep nourishing yourself so you don't metabolically downregulate too quickly, because your body is in stress and then it starts to adapt. And then your deficit, you don't get quite the result that you want. You have to pull out early because of metabolic issues, or you push yourself further for no result. Like once you downregulate, or you get to that point where you're just like, well, shit, I have to keep pulling calories down and down and down. That will eventually happen if you go too long and too hard in a deficit, but it also has a lot to do with what you're putting into your body at that time as well. So that then translates to someone who is, so if you're doing a deficit, this is where you want to be responsible to prevent that downregulation. But if you are someone who is already downregulated, you actually need to be just as responsible with the foods that you're putting into your body, because you need to try and upregulate your metabolism to get it working again. Now, without any of this nourishment, bodies will not build muscle, or their capacity to build will be lessened, because muscle tissue is additional tissue. When you're trying to build muscle, you need to understand that it's trying to build additional tissue. It's trying to add to your body. So if you aren't flowing in with enough of the nutrients to it build, and hey, spoiler alert, it's not just fucking protein. The protein narrative out there is wild at the moment. Eat more protein, eat more protein. I'm seeing women on 200 grams of protein. Like, what the fuck? You do not need that much protein. And it's sacrificed at the cost of carbs that are mineral rich and vitamin rich, because yes, you might need amino acids from proteins to actually build muscle, but you also need vitamins and minerals, because your body works as a holistic system, and muscle is the Gucci handbag, right? So look at it from a budget perspective. If you've got a certain amount of cash coming in, so nutrients, the first thing your body is going to do is pay its bills, its electricity bill, all that sort of stuff. So this is your cardio function, your respiratory function, your brain function. Like, it's going to keep your system ticking over to keep you alive. That is the first place your nourishment goes to. But if your volume is not enough and the nutrients it extracts is just to keep you alive and just kind of semi-operational, it is not going to have any nutrients left over to actually build additional tissue or keep that's from terms of someone who's metabolically downregulated. But from the terms of going into a deficit, the first thing it's going to do if you don't have enough nourishment is it's going to sacrifice muscle, because it's too expensive to also keep, not just build, but also keep. It needs nutrients going into it. So you need to start reframing what food is all about. And it is so much more than just a bunch of macros, okay? And it is so much more than protein. So today's episode, I'm going to be covering the importance of nutrients when volume is low. So when either your caloric base metabolically is low, or you're choosing to go into a deficit. I've done other podcasts around dieting responsibly. So if you want one of those, reach out to me on Instagram, send me a DM, and I will tell you which podcast it is, send you the link for it. So there's actually a lot of structure that goes behind dieting. So I do have podcasts on that. I'm not going to dive too deeply into that, but what I actually want to do is show you the importance that when your food is low, and I would say if your baseline is under 1,800 calories, as a woman who is in the gym 3 to 6 days a week, 3 to 7 days a week, like if you're 3 days plus and you're in the gym and you're getting some steps in, you're active and your calories are under 1,800, unless you're like 5'1", 5'2", obviously there's some height restrictions there, but in general, under 1,800, you don't have enough nourishment going in to you for the size of your body, all right? So we need to be really strategic about the nourishment that we put into our body and stop just thinking calories and protein. So that's what this episode is about, and you can apply it to whichever stage you're at. Maybe you are metabolically healthy and you train really well, you know you've got muscle mass, but you're just trying to diet and maybe cravings hit, you feel really lethargic, you feel like you can't train, and those sorts of things hit you and prevent you from staying in a deficit long enough. Or maybe you are someone who's metabolically downregulated and everyone tells you gain muscle because it's metabolically demanding, so you'll need more calories. That is true. That is absolutely true. And the more energy you expend, the more calories you need. So, getting your daily steps in, being active in the gym, all those sorts of things demand more calories. But that is not your only tool to help bring up your metabolic base. And the ultimate tool is, how healthy are you? Do you sleep well? Muscle is built in sleep. Really, you recover a lot in sleep. And if your sleep is shit because you're super low carbs or super low energy, then you're not going to build muscle, are you? So how do you get to that place of being capable of building muscle when you're metabolically downregulated? And it's all about volume of nutrients that is going to prop you up. Okay. So that's what this week's episode is about. So 2 different women can be in a low caloric space for 2 very different reasons. But at the end of the day, the principles are the same. We're either trying to upregulate your metabolism because you're down there already downregulated, or you're strategically going into it. And the best thing you can do is try and keep your metabolic rate up as much as possible and slow down the rate at which metabolic adaptation will happen. Because when you are under your caloric maintenance, you will eventually metabolically downregulate. When and how is determined by how hard you cut, how long you cut for, and the amount of nutrients that are going in. So let's talk about the nutrition piece for women. What I want you to understand is that metabolism is actually driven predominantly from thyroid health and thyroid function. You might hear a lot of people talking about thyroid health in women, and this is where a lot of our mitochondrial health, our energy systems, our hormone health are all driven by the state of our thyroid function. So there are some really key nutrients that we need in our body, and the first bit I'm going to talk about is actually what we should be doing from a modern day perspective. We don't eat nose to tail in animals anymore, and we're actually lacking a lot of nutrition there. So the first things we want to look at is, what are some fundamentals that should be there regardless of caloric intake to ensure that in the modern world we are covering all the nutrition gaps that we get from a different style of eating these days. And the first would be beef liver and oysters, 2 of the most nutrient-dense, mineral-rich, vitamin-rich foods on the planet of weight ratio versus what they contain. With all of my clients, we have the discussion at intake around how are they going to get beef liver and oysters into them. Okay, so we're talking around 100 to 150 grams of beef liver per week. So 1 serving of beef liver per week, and 6 to 12 oysters. I prefer on the 12 side, especially with women that are training. but, even if it's a half dozen to get that in. So your beef is going to have copper, vitamin A, iron. Oysters are going to have zinc, selenium, copper again, chlorine, like all these things that are not readily available in your muscle meats and things like that, that we're missing by not eating organ meats anymore. So you've got two things there. And the way I like to look at beef liver and oysters is beef liver covers, yes, the vitamin A and copper, but it also covers all of your B vitamins as well. So the beef liver is very vitamin rich. Yes, it has minerals like your copper and things like that, but it is really vitamin rich on essential vitamins like all the B group vitamins, A vitamins. They are vitamin A. Some vitamin D as well, which we don't get a lot of vitamin D through our food and nourishment. Yes, we should be getting most of our vitamin D from the sun, but most of us are devoid of that. Because what do? Modern world, we sit inside all fucking day. All right. So that's where the beef liver is really important. And then I like to look at the oysters as the mineral side of things. So all those trace minerals that we don't get a lot of. Again, copper and zinc. Copper and zinc in balance, by the way. If you take zinc as a supplement and you don't have some sort of form of copper going in, zinc will then deplete your vitamin A and your iron. All right. So if you've got iron issues and you're taking a zinc supplement, please stop the zinc supplement because it's not in balance. We've got to understand that all these foods need, not only do we need the volume of it, but they need to come in balance. And this is why I'm pro food before supplements. Yes, I use supplements. I'm very particular. It is very, very rare. I will recommend a zinc supplementation for the reasons I've just spoken about here. Not saying that it doesn't ever happen, but very, very rare would I recommend a zinc supplement because you just have the oysters and it works. Now, what if you don't like beef liver or you don't like oysters? I personally will eat either. I will eat beef liver in pate. I can't find a nice clean pate that's lower on the fat side. So it means I need to make it. And I'm going to be honest, it's a ball breaker making it. And I just don't have time while I am busy building a business. So for me, it becomes about either you can have it raw. So I go to the butcher's and he gives me nice thinly sliced beef liver. I chop it down into small pieces of around 15 to 20 grams. It goes into the freezer and then I could just pull one piece out every morning, quickly chop it up into tiny little pieces, scoop it up, throw it back with a glass of water. I know, sounds gross, but it gets it done. Gets the job done. All right. So that's one way of doing it. Very cheap. Beef liver is about $10 a kilo. You only need 100, 150 grams a week. So for $10, you're getting 2 months worth of beef liver for $10. That's cheaper than all your supplements that you're taking. The other way to do it is you can also buy freeze-dried, non-defatted, very, very important, freeze-dried, non-defatted beef liver in capsules with no additives in them because quite often they put things into the capsules or the tablets to make them move through the machinery better and they can be very gut irritating. I personally recommend Saturate. They have an amazing line. It's the cleanest supplements I have come across. And they have all the essential ones. So beef liver is one of them. If you don't want to eat it, then get the supplement version of it. Oysters, I particularly love oysters. I regularly have a dozen Kilpatrick oysters a week. When I'm not in a deficit, it's a little bit harder with fat and protein and trying to balance all of that. So I tend not to have the oysters and I tend to have the supplement again, Saturate. And in fact, for Australia, I've not found anything like the oyster supplements that Saturate have. So if you do want a code for that, you can message me on Instagram or just go to the Saturate website and it's LOU, L-O-U, with an asterisk. That is the code and it will get you a 10% discount. So you can use those or message me on Instagram and I will send you a link directly to Saturate. So beef liver and oysters, it's like your multivitamin, regardless if you're in a deficit or if you're metabolically downregulated, these should be part of your diet. Carrot salad becomes really important. I've spoken a lot about carrot salad again. I've got a podcast on it, dives a lot deeper into it, but it helps with digestion. So it gets your digestion moving properly and keeps it moving when energy intake is low. So think deficit or metabolically downregulated. If you're metabolically downregulated, it's likely that you either have digestion issues or constipation. That is a sign of metabolic downregulation. If you go into a deficit, you may find that your digestion slows or you get a little bit of bloating. Carrot salad actually helps sweep out all the endotoxins from your body, which your liver is now having a harder time doing, given that you're low on energy and nutrient input. So a carrot salad is really helpful and beneficial from that point of view and helps keep your fiber up as well. So they're three little things that are super, super important. I would say a fourth one is collagen, whether you're doing bone broth, whether you're doing gelatinous meats, or whether you're using a collagen supplement. Again, Saturé make a great one. Organic, grass-fed Australian beef is where it all comes from. Amazing product. And you can use that as a supplementation version if you're not regularly getting bone broth and gelatinous cuts of meat. So think like your oxtail and oyster blade and all those really beef cheeks, all those really gelatinous style meats that you need to slow cook. They're the ones that we get our gelatin from. Because we're in a busy modern world, we come home from work and we slap a piece of steak in the pan and it's done in 10 minutes and we're good to go. We don't have the time as such in the more modern world to be doing slow cooked meats. For me, I live in the tropics. I'm not having the oven on all day. I'm not feeling like a slow cooked from a meal from a slow cooker in the tropics. We only have a few weeks of winter a year. So I do use the supplement version of the collagen as well. Collagen will help with gut health, gut barrier, inflammation, recovery, ligament and tendon strength and quality, so it helps you prevent injuries, those sorts of things. So collagen is really amazing as well. So there are some underlying things right there. I want to get more specifically into what happens when someone is low volume. Now, they might be low volume unintentionally, that just had that dieting kind of style of eating for a very long time. And the other side is if someone is going into a deficit, you see all over Instagram, all these high volume food, have these massive salads, lots of broccoli and cauliflower and all these veg and beans, and you pile your plate up and then you just have a piece of protein on the side. One, those foods do not contain many carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are still a critical thing in this. Just because you are low calorie doesn't mean that you scalp all your carbs out. In fact, that's the worst thing you can do. I see people go into deficits and they actually increase their protein. And that's where I'm seeing people on 200 grams of protein, and no woman needs 200 grams of protein. Whether you're building muscle or not, you do not need that much protein. And it's at the sacrifice of good quality carbs. So what sort of, and those cruciferous veg, they actually have anti-nutrients in them where your body doesn't absorb the nutrients that they contain anywhere near as well as other foods. Okay, so they're not bioavailable. Cows have 4 stomachs for a reason. Sheep have 4 stomachs for a reason, because all this leafy, so think grass and hay, all this leafy stuff, to extract it, it's got to go through a gut process 4 times to get the nutrients out of it. We aren't built like that. We eat the sheep that's already taken the nutrients and then we eat it. Now, that's not saying don't ever eat broccoli and don't ever eat salads, but a salad was designed to be a side salad. So if you're going, I'm eating clean, I'm eating healthy, and I can't eat more than 1,600 calories without putting on weight, take a look at your tuna salad that you're eating for lunch every day, because there's fuck all nutrients in it that you're actually absorbing. And there's not many calories in it either. So you're pulling down your metabolic base by constantly living on foods like that. And if you live on a lot of these excessively fibrous foods, I'm going to guess right now you have gut issues, bloating, constipation, indigestion, all these types of things that happen with your gut, constantly feeling like you've got bloat and inflammation. It's from excessive fiber. Fiber is important, sure. But this get 30, 40 grams of fiber a day is just, we don't need that. Again, the pendulum has swung in society because so many people have gone to eating processed, nutrient-devoid foods, and they're not getting any fiber by eating a packet food all the time and highly palatable biscuits and muffins and all the rest of it. But I know that that's not who you are. Yet the message out there is, you need to get more fiber. You need to get more fiber, get more vegetables in. But when you're someone who's already eating clean and then you increase that, you're now in excess. So a lot of your gut issues will be coming from there. Twofold: low energy availability because there's not many carbs in it, but also 2, the nutrients it does contain, it's not bioavailable for us to absorb. We can get that nutrition from many other places though. So what should we be eating Get rid of the nuts and salads and legumes and all those sorts of things that are creating gut issues and actually don't have they're not nutrient dense and bioavailable. So what is really good? Of course, we've got grass-fed animal meats. So that's our protein side of things. Yes, it contains iron and B vitamins and all those sorts of things as well. But if we can go for the best quality animal proteins, they are best. Dairy is the next animal. Dairy and eggs, another great source of protein. Eggs are quite high in fat though, so do keep that in mind when you are in low calorie. Dairy, full of vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin A, phosphorus, calcium in the correct ratios. Do you know that quite often we're having too much phosphorus and not enough calcium? Therefore, we don't absorb everything in the right way, whereas dairy balances all that out for us. So dairy is fantastic. If you are dairy intolerant, that is a gut issue. You are dairy intolerant, you're not allergic, never to have dairy again. Okay, you've got issues, you're metabolically downregulated, and you need to work on that and slowly reintroduce dairy. Okay, I love Parmesan cheese when I'm in a deficit. So if I am going to use a cheese, I use Parmesan cheese because it's actually quite low in fat and quite high in protein. So that's another great one to be using rather than standard cheeses or mozzarellas. So thinking about, when I'm not in a deficit, obviously I can eat those higher fat ones, but definitely if you're in a deficit or you're metabolically downregulated and your calorie intake is low, for you to not put excessive body fat on, I get it. Low fat dairy is the way to go. Not no fat dairy. So don't drink milk that's got no fat in it, because the fats actually contain your fat soluble vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin E. Really, really important, and it comes within the fats of animals. And this is why when I spoke about the beef liver, I said it's really important to have the non-defatted. So if you're buying from somewhere and it doesn't say specifically if it's non-defatted or not, you need to check with the manufacturer. Again, Saturé is fabulous. I know that they don't defat their liver beforehand, but that's where you're getting all your vitamin A from. And it also needs to be freeze-dried because vitamin A can break down very quickly. So the freeze-drying rather than heating process is best for preservation of vitamin A. So not all supplements are equal either. So keep that in mind. Now, we've done animal proteins, dairy and eggs. Then we go to our carb sources, which is, and by the way, sorry, I did forget, seafood rich in selenium and iodine. So obviously we've got oysters in there. But, wild caught. And please don't get obsessed about your omega-3s and fill your entire diet with things like tuna and salmon because it's got omega-3. You actually don't need that much of it. And if you're doing wild caught, yes, it's fine. Don't go the farmed versions because the quality of those fish are just terrible. Be very careful with salmon. Most of it in the world is farmed. So unless you're going for like a Norwegian wild caught sockeye salmon, I personally don't touch it because the color is created by feeding them colored fed pellets. So they are being fed pellet food rather than their natural environment. So the quality of the fats within them is actually not good quality. So have a think about that as well. So what we're doing is can you hear this? We're getting back to normal foods like grandma used to cook. Fat sources should be like butter, olive oil, don't cook with it, cold only. Avocado oil, same thing again because it can oxidize. Coconut oil is great for cooking with. Tallow is great for cooking with. Butter is great for cooking with. So they're fat sources. Steer clear of your seed oils. And I'm not going to get into the argument about seed oils are good and seed oils are bad. The industrialization of seed oils and the way they are processed is what is harming us. Okay, the processing of these oils, the way they're extracting, the way they're making it as cheap as possible, and the way that they're packaging, all those sorts of things means that the oils are already oxidized when they get to you, and then we throw it in a hot pan and it makes it even worse. So avoid seed oils where you can. Now let's just talk about those carbohydrate things. So root vegetables, I'm talking potatoes, squash, pumpkin, beetroots, turnips. Think about all those really nice starchy vegetables that are colorful and bright and they're easy to digest. They're not excessively fibrous like, all your broccoli and all that. They've got good carbohydrates, potassium, vitamin C, minerals, so good for you. Fruits, think tropical fruits. If you're going to go down the path of things like pears and apples and you've got digestive issues, you may want to have a look at cooking them off first. They're quite high in pectin, and pectin can cause digestive upset. So maybe if you've got a really touchy digestion at the moment, stewing those first is a good way. But all those other fruits, watermelons, strawberries, berries, all those sorts of things are just so full of, yes, fiber. Fiber that's good for you. Insoluble fiber. There's nothing wrong with insoluble fiber. You get that from the carrot salad. You're going to get that from, maybe if you're eating pineapple, other vegetables, but we don't need these excessive amounts of it. Insoluble fiber is actually really good for you as well. Avocado is another one. It's more of a fat source, but it is great for you in the way of vitamins, minerals, nutrients. So things that are really easy to digest, juices, honey. P.S. There's nothing wrong with white sugar. It's energy. Is it nutrient dense and does it belong in a low caloric state? Probably not. So when I diet, the first things that go are, honeys, maple syrups, and plain sugar. I take them out of my diet and I just keep the nutrient rich in there. But in general, sugar's actually not the culprit. It's just an energy source that's void of nutrients. So it's not something to be afraid of, but might not belong in your diet at this point in time. So you can hear all these different styles of foods that we're talking about. What I find women are doing when they go, I'm going to go on a deficit, or they've been eating clean, working hard. They go to high salad, high cruciferous veg, beans, those sorts of things. They start introducing a lot more flavored protein powders. I'm not a fan of whey protein. It's actually quite inflammatory. I prefer casein. And if I'm going to use it, it's plain. It's absolutely plain. It has no artificial sweeteners. It has no, and I mean, you read the side of the pack and it seems like it's a really good idea at the time. Oh, look at all those vitamins and minerals are all synthetic. Your body processes them very, very differently. A synthetic zinc, so a zinc supplement, is extremely different to getting zinc from nutrients from food. And your body just doesn't absorb it and utilize it in the same way. So if you are low on zinc, you need to be looking at your food intake and what is in there, the type of nutrients that are in there, not reaching for the supplement. All right. So looking at the foods that are going to give you as much nourishment as possible. And I look at the types of foods that I am eating in a deficit. Lemon curd is one of them at the moment. Amazing benefits in citrus. So I have the zest in there. I have the juice in there. And then we have eggs in there. So eggs help turn it into a curd. Yes, it's got some sugar, but all the nutrients that you're actually getting from the eggs and the lemon outweighs that little bit of sugar in it. And it is so packed with nutrients. And then I add it to Greek yogurt with a little bit of sweetened condensed milk. So all of that is containing vitamins and minerals and calcium and protein as well. That one little dish alone, in comparison to if someone went, I'll have a protein shake with all these synthetic vitamins on it. I've done the comparisons, and one, the volume of it is nowhere near what you're getting out of just eating those nutrient-rich foods, and two, your body processes and utilizes them so much better. Okay, so reaching for good foods first. Stop filling your diet with, okay, I have to be low calorie because I'm in a deficit, so I'm going to have this protein shake that's flavored. Okay, all that shit is no good for you, and you're going to make your gut worse. When your gut goes off, you stop absorbing nutrients as well because it's got inflammation in there. So then what food you do eat, you're eating less of the good food because you're replacing it with things like protein bars, flavored protein powders. Then those things that contained within it often will upset people's gut. So then your gut gets upset. You're getting a lot of bloat. You're getting a lot of inflammation. So the food that you are consuming is not being absorbed as well because first level absorption to get it into your blood and traveling around your body to be utilized is actually via the gut. That's the first place. So you start inflaming that and irritating that with all these synthetics and additives and preservatives and sweeteners and all those sorts of things that give you gut irritation, then you've just compromised yourself even further. All right, so that's something to think about as well. There's nothing wrong with rice. Rice is mineral rich as well, really easy to digest. Sourdough, if you are going to have wheat, make sure it's an organic sourdough. I still find a lot of people can't digest sourdough and oats as well. You've got to be quite robust. I don't have gut issues, but if I eat sourdough every day, my digestion slows down. Same with oats. I can eat it for a week and then after that, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I can't eat this anymore. So have a think about that as well. But sourdough is absolutely something that's a lot easier to digest. Like I said, rice full of minerals. There's some other things there that you can have for nutrient dense carbohydrates that nourish your body. The whole thing here is making sure that you're nourishing yourself in that low energy state. Okay. It really does become key to make sure. And what happens when we're getting enough nutrients is that the symptoms stay away. So if you are metabolically downregulated and you start choosing all these nutrient dense food, your weight's not going to go up because you're not eating any more food, but you're actually, as in calorie wise, you're not eating any more calories, but the types of calories you're now eating are nutrient dense. They support the thyroid, they support metabolic health. So all of a sudden you start eating these and you start going, oh, I feel a little bit better. So you move more because you've got more energy. And then you start sleeping better. So when you sleep better, you've got more energy. And when you have more energy, you just start generally moving more. Like incidental movement, I'm not talking about planned walks and training. I'm just talking about the way you move through life becomes up-regulated. So therefore, your body starts demanding a few more calories. It starts processing things better. Your hormones come back online better because you know what? Your hormones are the last place nutrient goes. So remember I spoke about nutrition going to the keep you alive function, so it's not going to build muscle, but it also puts hormone health on the back burner too, reproductive hormone health. So there's lots of different hormones in our bodies, but when I talk about hormones from a midlife perspective, we're talking about reproductive hormones that they're already starting to sway and swing in midlife. And then if you actually haven't been nourishing yourself properly, your body perceives that as famine, like we don't have enough nutrients coming in. It's thinking back to caveman days. So it doesn't feel like it has safety. So it goes, well, we're not going to give you hormones to be able to reproduce because you're not even got enough nutrients at the moment coming in to keep your metabolic systems alive, to keep you as a person alive. How are you going to grow another human being and keep that alive on the outside when there's just not enough nutrition? So your body doesn't know that you're trying to lose body fat or that you're just eating clean and you haven't realized how you've been, down regulating yourself. All your body knows is energy state, so amount of calories, which you're in a tricky position if you're metabolically down regulated because you can't increase that first. What you need to do first is increase the nutrient content and then the calories will start to come up. So it's in the reverse. People go, oh, reverse diet. Okay, you can try and reverse diet if you're metabolically down regulated and it will help, but it's not the whole piece of the puzzle because if you start reverse dieting with fake foods, your body isn't getting the nourishment it needs. If you're trying to reverse diet with just high volume foods that you're not really absorbing that nutrition, it's still not going to help you. All right. So your hormones will be more stable if you've got enough coming into your body because it'll go, oh, okay, you're functioning well. And look, we've got some left over. We'll give some that to the muscle because you did a stimulus in the gym. So I can see you want some muscle there. So we'll send some there. And then we're going to send some to your hormones as well. And when you have enough carbohydrates in your body, you actually sleep well as well. And so much repair in your body happens in sleep, hormone health wise and muscle wise. So as you're listening along to this, I want you to be able to reframe beyond macros, because if you're someone who is already in the gym, you probably know that macros and protein are super important. And they are, but they are not the whole piece of the picture. And if you're metabolically down regulated, struggling to build muscle, you just don't know why, you're working hard in the gym, the nutrients part could be part of that. And the best way to start up-regulating yourself and start nourishing your body to want to build muscle mass for more metabolic capacity is to have enough nutrients in your body. So look at the types of foods that you're putting in. Anyone who tells me that they're eating healthy and not getting the results they want, you can show me a logged diary of what you eat every day, and I will within 2 minutes be able to pin what you can do to improve straight away. And the amount of clients that come into my container swap to this way of eat, it's not even swapping for a way of eating, it's just normal fucking food, and actually become aware that, even though you're not a processed food person, that excessive salads and protein powders are actually not good for you, they are okay in small amounts. Like sometimes I might be traveling and grabbing a protein bar might be the only thing I can do at the time. It's better than nothing, absolutely better than nothing. But 95% of the time, my diet is filled with nutrient-dense foods always. Whether I am at maintenance or whether I am in a deficit, I am always focusing on the quality of food going in. I've actually got another whole podcast as well on pro-metabolic eating. So, if you want that, in the show notes below, there's also going to be a link to an optimal food guide, which gives you a lot more information around what I'm talking about today. And it gives you an example meal plan of the types of example foods of what you can be eating. And you can create some amazingly tasty foods out of all of this. I've got people eating brownies and custard. I'm having the lemon curd at the moment, which I've been talking about. That's an absolute hit. Some people eat fudge. Then you might not be a sweet person. Then you can eat all the cheeses and the meats, all those sorts of things that are really going to nourish you. I think potatoes, there's nothing better than sitting down and eating potatoes. Do you know how many women that I've gone, oh my God, I've missed potatoes. I thought they were bad for me. Like, it's ridiculous that we think all these foods are so bad for us when they're actually the nutrient-dense foods. So when we understand the nutrients component as well as the macros and calories component, then this bigger picture you've got so much more control and you get so much more of a better result than what you've actually been getting. By focusing on nourishment, your body will naturally upregulate, or if you're going into a deficit, it's going to stop you from down-regulating as fast. So have a think about that. I'm just checking my notes here and making sure there wasn't anything else. Oh, supplementation. Actually, that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about. So moving on to the next one past the actual nutrition itself. When you have a low caloric base, sometimes supplementation is necessary. As long as you've got the underpinning nutrients going in, that's great. But sometimes when you are low, supporting yourself with some targeted and very strategic supplementation can be beneficial. So for me at the moment, being in a deficit, one of the things that I have done is I normally drink an adrenal cocktail. So it's orange juice, so 50-50 orange juice, coconut water and salt. And then I've also got magnesium of a night time that I add to my diet, right? So magnesium is another one that generally I do. Magnesium biglycinate is great. Magnesium malate is great. Magnesium threonate is great. So getting some additional magnesium into your diet, a clean powder, straight powder is what you want to go for, putting that into your diet. And then when you add the adrenal cocktail, I have it when I'm training because it provides energy within training. It provides hydration. So it's actually a hydration drink. So when you think about these Gatorades and, all these hydration electrolyte drinks, LMNT is another one, all the rest of it, again, filled with artificial ingredients, filled with sweeteners, colors, those sorts of things. When essentially what it is for hydration, what do you need? Sodium, potassium, vitamin C, magnesium, and some carbs behind it. So an adrenal cocktail, which is the mix of orange juice, coconut water. So orange juice gives you some carbs. It gives you vitamin C. It does have some potassium in it. Coconut water is filled with potassium. And then you have the salt, which is the sodium, getting enough magnesium in your diet. You now have a hydration drink with some calories behind it. When I go into a deficit, that is one of the things that I do reduce. I don't drink my calories. I eat my calories in a deficit. So it helps with keeping me full. So I will actually use an adrenal cocktail supplement replacement. I get mine from the Pro-Metabolic Company founded by Craig McDonald. If you want a code for it, let me, again, it's Lou Star, but you can also DM me and I'll send you a link. That's on Instagram. You can find me at strengthtraining.nutritionist and also some links below. I'll get all of this popped into the show notes. So I use that because when you are low volume of food, you are just low minerals in general. And having that has helped me immensely with my energy needs. So that could be something that you could use to help supplement your diet and really keep you going. So potassium is super important. We don't get a lot of potassium in our diet unless we're eating lots of fruit and lots of potatoes, drinking the juice, drinking the coconut water. But if you've got low caloric base or you're in a deficit with low calories, how do you still get all that vital nutrients in? So that is one way. So magnesium is something I still support. So magnesium is also, it buffers stress. It doesn't buffer stress. We use more when we are stressed. So whether that's emotional stress or physical stress. So physical stress can actually be a low caloric diet. That is actually a stress on the body to be in an energy deficit, but then also the stress of training. So training is an adaptation stress. Those two things alone means that we're just not going to get enough magnesium from our diet. So it is one that I suggest nearly all clients go on, but in a deficit, even more important would be magnesium. All right. And then obviously, if you are low caloric needs, maybe you don't want to be eating the liver and eating the oysters. So the supplement version of those are really good. So there's 3 little things that can be super, super helpful. There are other things that can be targeted depending on who you are and where you are. So if you're metabolically downregulated, say endotoxin clearance is an issue for you, you might need some taurine, additional taurine to help supplement you. That is also in the Adrenal Plus cocktail from Pro Metabolic Nutrition. It's got magnesium, taurine, potassium, whole food vitamin C, sodium. And it's sodium from the Murray River salt. So it's like a clean salt that's been taken from a clean source that's mineral rich. So again, those minerals like your boron and iron and chlorine and all those sorts of things that we're missing. So that's another one that goes into it. Or you might just need a little bit of taurine supplementation. If you don't tolerate the carrot salad well and your hands start going yellow and you find that your calluses are going yellow and even rinsing the carrot salad isn't working, maybe moving to a taurine supplementation while you're metabolically downregulated could be a good idea for you as well. So you can see there's a few little different things that we can add in to support your body in a time of low caloric intake. Whether it's because you're metabolically downregulated or you're in a deficit, you need to be responsible about the food that you're putting in. And when it's low, the reality is supplementation is likely needed. That is always targeted to the individual's needs. I don't generally give out much generic advice, but I would say that if you added magnesium and the Pro Metabolic Company Adrenal Plus, that you've got a lot of things covered there. So that's a really good one to put in, and there is no harm in those ones either. So some vitamins and minerals we don't want to go into excess of because they can actually be damaging to our body. All right, so you've got to be really careful about what you do supplement with, but that one, even if you're eating normally, you can have that one as well. It's not going to hurt you at all, and it's just going to prop up minerals that the modern diet are very low in, but definitely something that can be added in a low caloric space. Yeah, so again, like I said, I don't really recommend, although I've touched on a couple of different ones, they may or may not be needed for you, but that's by assessing your base on a case-to-case basis and where your needs are. Chronometer as a tracking tool is amazing to show you what you are and aren't consuming. Okay, so it actually dives right into all the micronutrients. So you can see there yourself what you're lacking in and where some supplementation may be important for you. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where or how you got there. You need to be responsible about the fact that there is low calories in your life at the moment. So I hope this has been really helpful for you. I want you to reframe what clean eating really is. And if you're absolutely, yep, I eat healthy, I would challenge you to go and download that optimal health food guide and have a look at the best foods. So I've got optimal foods, sometimes foods, and there are a couple of avoids, but the avoids are what, things that I touch on. This is not a diet around restriction and elimination. Avoid is keep industrialized processed oils out of your diet, keep the additives and preservatives out of your diet. So there's a couple of little things like that. The sometimes foods will depend on your gut health and your tolerance. So maybe there's foods in there that you're eating a lot of and you go, well, I've got a lot of bloat or I've got a lot of hormone issues and I'm eating a lot of the sometimes foods. Maybe you just need to, for a short period of time, remove those sometimes foods so your body can upregulate and stick to the optimal column. I know in my health journey, so if those of you who don't know, I came from a really poor hormonal health background. So from the day I started menstruation, I pretty much had endometriosis. After children, I suffered with chronic thrush for 7 years. Doctors couldn't help me. I was on antifungal medication, which I needed to have my liver monitored all the time. No one could help me. And I tell you what, I changed to pro-metabolic nutrition and I no longer suffer with endometriosis. I no longer have chronic thrush. I am no longer on medication. And in perimenopause, I do not have brain fog, joint issues, frozen shoulder, memory loss, brain fog. Like, I don't have any of that. I do get hot flushes when I am under a lot of stress, if I'm not sleeping well because of stress, or if I am in a deficit. So yes, I'm suffering with hot night sweats at the moment, which is not fun, but I know the minute that I start eating again that they will go away. It is just feedback to my body that I'm not doing well. But when you look at the history that I came from and doctors, I literally flew to different states to see specialists around the chronic thrush issue that I had. Part of the thing that added to my marriage breakdown back then was, having this chronic vaginal thrush is not a fun thing, and nobody could help me. And when I actually just nourished my body with what it fucking needed from a thyroid and metabolic and energy production standpoint, totally changed my life. So if you're suffering with perimenopause and you think you eat clean, I really challenge you, download that document and start having a look at what you need. And if you want me to have a look over the foods that you're eating and what it could potentially be, you're always welcome to DM me on Instagram and ask me some questions. I'll look at your food log, look at what symptoms you're having, and give you some suggested tweaks that you could make. But that is definitely something you need to be looking at. Yes, across the board, even if you're not low caloric, but maybe you're on 2,000 plus calories, but you're suffering with perimenopause and menopause symptoms terribly, can guarantee you it's because of nutrients, not macros, not protein, carbs, fats. You can be having all the protein, carbs, and fats, but not eating the right amount of nutrients. You're actually nutrient deficient, not caloric deficient. So this extends even well beyond low calories. Yes, this podcast has been about if you're in low calories from the 2 points of view of accidentally ending up there or intentionally ending up there. But at the end of the day, if you have any of these underpinning health issues, always look at nutrients first. That is the first place, because our body is made up of all these systems that interlink with one another, and your body will always choose survival for your nutrients first. Not how clearly you think, just that your heart's beating. Not how well you defend a flu virus, how well your blood's pumping through your body. Think about the difference, how well you breathe to keep you alive, to put oxygen through your body. Think of those sorts of things. It's just going to keep you alive. If it doesn't have enough of anything, that is going to be its priority. Your body is a smart, intellectual being, and it will always prioritize survival over muscle and hormones. It really will. And that is where your body composition changes truly lie, is in nourishment. And when you want to thrive in perimenopause, not just look good, if you actually want to look good and thrive, have great sleep and have great energy and just feel amazing and uplifted and be able to manage stress, because life is always going to be full of stress. It's how we manage it. Your actual reaction to stress and your capacity to deal with stress within the body becomes so much better. And it flows through to career. It flows through to the way you manage relationships, the way you show up for people. You are an entirely different person when you are nourished. And when you are nourished, your body will build the muscle and drop the body fat. I hope this podcast has been really helpful for you this week. All the links will be below for this podcast. I know I've spoken about quite a number of things, but they will all be below for you. And if you're unsure what's best for you, message me on Instagram at strengthtraining.nutritionist. And if you found anything helpful out of this podcast, I would love to get this podcast into the hands of more women just like you. So please share it on Instagram and also tag me at strengthtraining.nutritionist, and I will catch you all next week.